magic from him, perhaps. It's a good ball. Grayson. It goes towards Owen. Brilliant save, it's in! Walsh has scored! Leicester City are in dreamland now! Vardy in the middle. This could be a huge moment. Vardy scored! And it's pandemonium in Leicester.
Mahrez with his left, Albrighton with his right. It is Mahrez. It's a good ball in. Morgan's there. It's in. Leicester City score. It is a captain's goal from Wes Morgan, who lifted the Premier League trophy in May. He might have played a big part now in taking Leicester City through to the quarter-finals of the Champions League.
Lift the trophy to the skies. Leicester City are the champions of the Premier League. 5,000 to 1.
Andreas.
Good I accidentally stopped my cam. Apologies for that.
Good evening and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses for a very special live stream. One of three that will be coming to the channel, and it is of course the return of the scouting report, like we did back in December. Now, before we get into it all and talk about the inevitable arguments over who's a hidden gem and who's just shit, let's just be clear about one thing. We do this stream, we do these scouting reports because we genuinely feel, I don't know about Michael here, but we genuinely feel that if the club, took a look at some of these suggestions or, signed them, let alone sign them, then we feel like the club would be in a better place. That's why we recommend these players. We are fully aware that the club will probably not touch any of these players, but we want to try and make a difference, which is why we bring these names to the channel. So before we start, Anil, how are you doing, my friend?
Causing chaos, being a twat, so usual standard Anil behaviour. That's how I'm doing.
I was going to say as well, sorry, some of the names last time round, Malik Fofana, Buscagli, who Doc has told me today is going to Brighton. There were a couple others as well. I think the video has aged very well. So we will see if this one ages well as well.
I'll say my recommendation, Kevin Diggs, he's gone on a free transfer to Mönchengladbach over in Germany as well, so to a big club there. So yeah, I think many of the recommendations have turned out to have quite good careers. Maybe some of our recommendations were a bit too ambitious, but nonetheless,
no one had Ayew Koulibaly on their shortlist, no?
Not the top of mind.
Whatever success you guys have on this podcast, I'll certainly be dragging the numbers down for successful transfers for sure.
Well, in all fairness, your picks tonight, Michael, are probably what the club would do them. So we'll talk about that. No, go on, Michael. How's everything with you, mate? You all right?
I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, back on the five-a-side scene. 2 games in, fractured my ankle. Just unfortunately can't stay fit. But no, doesn't mean I can't do podcasts though, so that's good.
So you are the Ricardo Pereira of BTG.
Oh yeah, they love me in trauma unit, JR. They absolutely love me.
Doc, what's going on with you, mate? How are you? How have your exams been going? Because I know you've had your head buried in them.
Yeah. Went all right today. I had my exam in just general statistics. I completed the whole exam just barely in time, and I'm pretty confident it should be a decent grade. I'm not sure I got everything 100% correct, but it was good. I'm satisfied. I think my performance was pretty good as well. I locked the fuck in, and now I'm excited for a bit of summer holiday. Just for a bit. I have one more exam to go still.
Lovely stuff. Well, let's get into it. The scouting report. We've all been looking forward to this one. There are some names already flying in the chat from some of the viewers, so please feel free to continue to do that, and we might bring a few up later in the stream. But yeah, go on, Anil. I think you had something as well before we start.
Absolutely. Well, as you say, so let's get involved in chat. We want people to have fun. And what we can say is at the end of our scouting report, we're going to have like the player ratings that we normally do. We can have a vote. So you can vote to see who would you most go for. So what's going to be fun about tonight's show is that basically each one of us is going to be a proper salesman. So even if the signings are terrible, it's a bit like you're an agent. And low key, I've got a feeling that Michael's going to be the most insane salesman you've ever seen. And he's going to sell us like an absolute crock of a player that we're going to give like a 6-year contract. So let's see if that comes through. But yeah, I've already seen some suggestions there. We will have time at the end as well to go through some of them. So absolutely get them out there. So we're going to go there. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. We've been looking forward to the show. A lot of FM nerds, clearly, in our group here. But just before we get going, I thought it's only fair to say that, like, yes, it's pretty clear that we need a striker, right? I think we can all agree with that. But we do actually have one recognised striker who's already at the club, which is this man, Patson Daka. And it's funny how this is literally one of the first comments someone said. We need someone that's pacey and on the cheaper side for transfer fees. My shout is Patson Daka. So I thought I would bring this up in the background just while we're talking, because cast your eyes, your giddy eyes back. The year is the space year 2022, going into 2022-23 season. And Leicester City have just signed an exciting new striker. Zambian international Patson Daka has arrived. What's he like? Can he be any good? Well, recognize this expression here. I thought it'd only be fair to have a look at some of the reasons why we got so excited for this guy joining the club. So here he is, wearing number 29. Boom, goal. Liquid football, as they might say. And I don't know about you guys, but at the time, I was so hyped for this signing. He seemed quick. He seemed agile. He was running about like an absolute Looney Tune. Look at that. Gosh. Yeah. Where's this Patson? Actually, no, Patson Daka got the rebound there, so maybe that's...
He would have done that today, though. Like, the thing is, he still wouldn't have gotten the rebound.
Look at that. Look at that.
I think we've obviously talked a lot of shit about the club. I can't blame this signing, man. He was so exciting. He had all the qualities we want. And obviously, hindsight is 2020, right? We will eventually get transfers wrong. But man, what a prospect he was. And it's just so sad to see that it feels like none of this is here. I don't even see glimpses of this anymore.
Look at that.
And this isn't even like... Well, this isn't even like, you can find YouTube clips of anybody, right? Yeah. Like, playing well. I mean, you can find a video of, Danny Ward looking like Manuel Neuer. But Patson Daka was truly like sought after by so many clubs. You can see, how good he was. And Felix, LCFC Rude in the chat there, he's actually Austrian and he used to watch Daka all the time and says, look, the old Daka. It's just crazy that it's just a different player. It just looks like a completely different player.
So, Tony Groovy Locks, and do you know what I don't get as well is that, like, I say this on the show a lot, but I never see Patson Daka do like finessed finishes. But you see in a lot of these clips that there's a lot of them where he doesn't just smash them in. He's actually like taken his time, been patient with them. As you say, so I mean, look, confidence is obviously a huge thing. But well, there we go. I thought I'd bring him up and see what the panel thought of him. And so
it's a similar trajectory to like Timo Werner, isn't it? Where he was deemed as like Germany's takeover from like Miroslav Klause. Did amazing at Leipzig. Obviously went to Czech. He had sort of the same attributes as well. Really fast, looked a natural finisher. And then whatever happened at Chelsea and Spurs since has just been nothing of the same.
Well, and so here's his record. So before this, he'd scored 30 goals in 33 games at Salzburg. That's before he came to Leicester. Now, I think it's fair to say that his time at Leicester has been pretty underwhelming. I think there's only the fairest that we can say. But I thought I would bring up, Locks brings up all the time. This was a season for us in the Championship. He was initially going to leave the club, if you remember, but he's made 20 appearances in total, 5 off the bench. He scored 7 goals and 5 assists in those 20 appearances and 2 Man of the Match awards. So, question for you guys, the panel, and for you, chat, because I think this determines what our strategy is, right? And I'd be interested when you pitch me your players for tonight. Are you saying that we need someone who's, Patson's not good enough? This guy that we're bringing in, he's a number 9. He gets Vardy's shirt, the GOAT behind me, and he's our main man going into the season. Or are you saying, no, I think we've got 46 games, so we need these players to rotate. So I'm bringing someone who's going to compete alongside him. I'm not going to speak for you. I'm just curious as to what you think. So Patson Daka,
I've got one of each.
I've
got one of each.
Interesting.
But no, look, I'll hand over to Duck in a sec. But like, I just think what Duck said about you can't really blame the club for this signing, and we mentioned them normally in a pair, Daka and Sumari. It was both of them. They were both so highly rated, and I don't know if it was you, Anil, or if it was Manny. Somebody told me the story about how all of the data analysts across Europe were like so surprised that he just hasn't worked out. He was expected to go on to be the next big thing, and we always talk about how we 10x'd his salary. If he turned into a world beater, we wouldn't even be talking about it, right? But he turned into a pile of shit. So that's why we mentioned that. So yeah, it is a shame, and you do feel that if he started scoring some goals, maybe the confidence is high, it could carry him through and he can gain some momentum and continue that. But 3 years down the drain so far, I think he's had too many chances. But yeah, go on, Duck.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's just had too many chances, right? I mean, even if he starts scoring a few games, it's hard to believe that he'll retain that. I think, in particular, seeing the last championship season, right, which was the season that was supposed to reignite him if he wanted to be anything at Leicester. But I think, look, you want us to move on to, you have brought this guy up, a Dane yourself, right?
Well, hold on, just before we get to the Danish tinted glasses, it's
sorry,
coming.
I can't help myself.
Hold your horses, because believe it or not, there is another option potentially that we could do playing up front. A bit of the forgotten man at Leicester, maybe. And it is, Locke's laughing, he probably knows who it is. It is, of course, Super Stevie Cooper's favourite ever signing, Jordan Ayew. And the reason I bring him up is that Jordan Ayew, looking back through his career, now admittedly, this was a while ago, but Jordan Ayew has played up front a few times in his career as the main striker for the whole season. He did it in the 2019 season for Crystal Palace, and you can see his numbers were pretty good. 9 goals, 2 assists, 4 man of the match awards there. He also, this is what got his move to England. When he was at Lorient in France, 12 goals, 5 assists, again, 4 man of the match awards when he was in Liga 1. So that's very good. And yet Swansea, it was on the Steve Cooper, that's where the relationship kind of flourished. So look, I'm just saying, because I think here's another thing. If Luke was here today, he'd be saying, guys, stop smoking banned substances. How much money are we going to have to spend on players? We might have to make the most of what we got. I think, Patson Daka's probably on 40 grand a week. I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Ayew's on something similar. We may not be able to offload these players. So I'm just making the case there. Do we have some answers already? Or am I the one smoking banned substances? And I will say, to be fair, that Jordan Ayew, for the most part this season, he seems to be playing either on the wing or that kind of inverting into being an attacking midfielder. But on occasion, he did seem to join the attack. And I remember that goal that he scored against Ipswich, with him and Vardy played that wonderful 1-2, and it was a great finish from him. So could Jordan Ayew be the answer, or is the question too scary to even ask?
I mean, I'll let Michael touch on this.
Yeah, go on,
Michael. I don't want to talk.
No, I will, because I'm in some ways I'm the wrong person to get on a podcast for trying to find a new striker, because my truest opinion is I don't think we need to sign a new striker this season.
My God,
I'm not convinced we need to do it. I think the current options we have for the Championship are more than adequate. A combination of Ayew, a combination of Daka, Evans, if we can sign him. I know that's a bit up in the air. I've been banging the Casey McAteer drum as a striker. I also think that could work as well. I think he'd be perfect for the role. And the striker that we're realistically going to sign, because there's going to be a problem with this conversation, is how realistic the signings are. We'll end up signing another Tom Cannon, £10 million, let's say, and he's just not actually going to be good enough for either the Championship or the Premier League.
Go on, Michael. Sorry.
I know. We went 8 games without scoring a goal this season, and that is awful. And the obvious thing for you to look at that point is let's sign a striker who's going to put the ball in the net. That seems very obvious, but lots of points in those matches, our defense was making stupid mistakes, and your legs can become very tired very quickly when you're 2 goals down very quickly, and the chances aren't opening up for you as well. In a game where you're 1-0 down, you're more likely to score a goal than when you're 3-0 down. The Champions League final is the perfect example of that. Inter Milan are not a 5-0 worse team to PSG, but their legs got very heavy against a young, quick team. And if it was 2-1 with 10 minutes to go, they wouldn't have looked as tired as when they were 4-0 down for sure.
I'll shortly say I think Jordan Ayew will be a useful squad player next season. I don't think we'll recoup our value for him. He can play on the wings, though. If injuries occur, we need someone to get him for 20 minutes and stick his bum out, buy some time, win some free kicks. And I think as well for the striker position, for me, it's Daka. I like the guy. I like his energy, but he just hasn't done it. He didn't do it last time in the Championship. He was one of the reasons why we were maybe even about to throw away the lead, because he couldn't finish the chances. And I've had enough of that. I wish Pasandaka the best, but he needs to go out the door, and then we get someone else. And even if it isn't a world beater, I want someone who's just reliable in front of goal and can get 15, 16 goals in the championship. And if that's a big name or not, who knows?
Michael might well be spitting some straight out facts there as well. I think we'll come back to that point at the end of the show. But we're going to get into our transfer recommendations now. And I've got to pay homage to our favourite Dane, because sometimes you've just got to take the L, haven't you? And often on this show, we accuse our Danish friend of wearing his Danish tinted glasses and being rather big on the Danish players. But I will say that there's a few other people, namely myself and Locks, that have been eating quite a lot of these Danish glazed donuts in our recommendations. So without further ado, we're going to get to the first transfer recommendation, the first one on the scouting report. And I think we should only be fair to get Andreas to say his name, because otherwise we're going to butcher it. So you tell us who he's called, and then Locks, take it away.
Yeah. So this is Mathias Kvistgaard from Brøndby.
Kvistgaard.
Kvistgaard.
There you go. Yeah, look, I picked this guy. Now, I actually didn't realise until earlier today when I watched back the scouting report in December that this guy did come up in the conversation. Doc was bigging him up. Now, of course, the transfer market website, the valuations are sometimes off, and I think he probably would be worth slightly more than this. So this is, for me, I will admit, quite an ambitious one. And he is linked with a couple of the clubs we'll get to in a second. But I actually think this guy would be excellent. I think he's not, he's not too young. So some people won't be happy about that. Some people want 16-year-olds, but 23 years old. As far as I'm aware, from what I've seen of him and from what I've read up about him, and I've been translating some Danish fans as well, their opinions on him, and they're a big fan of him. They talk about how he is pacey. He isn't the quickest. He's not Daka quick, but he does have quite a bit of pace. And he seems to me, because I'm going to pass the Duck in a set to tell us a little bit more, because he'll know more than me. But he does seem like quite a versatile player. And when I say versatile, I mean he could play in a variety of different systems depending on how we're playing. Maybe different managers if we go through a couple different managers. He looks like he's obviously as an out and out number 9, very good in the box, a fox in the box, but also running in behind, holding the ball up, a bit of trickery as you're seeing there. For me, he can do it all. Of course, it's a big step up to go from the Danish league to the English leagues. But
Hammond did that very well, right?
Well, yeah, but you can see here he does have a hell of a finish on him as well. So I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to hand over to.
That's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to hand over to Doc and tell us a bit more, though.
I mean, he would have been on my list had I not thought he was heading in a higher direction than what we are currently going at, right? He is pacey, he is a good finisher. He can play a bit of the wings, but I want him up front. Despite hating Brøndby with all my heart as a Copenhagen fan, because they are our fierce rivals, they do produce some good talents, Mads Hermansen being the last one of those, and this guy is next up, right? You'll see him at the U21 Euros, if you watch that. He's going on now with Denmark. Got his first national team debut last week, actually, when we played against Northern Ireland. He is one of probably the highest rated upcoming striker in Denmark currently, maybe outside of Cheeto Obi, but the one who's playing regularly at the first team. I believe second or third top goal scorer in Denmark as well. So I think this guy would be a great fit for us. And I mentioned him in January. I just sadly think he will either be too pricey, around 13, 14 million is what I'm reading. And then Frankfurt seem very interested in him, according to what the Danish media are saying. And I do think he would pick them above us unless something changes, right?
And I was going to say,
we're championship, aren't we? Sorry, Locke.
Exactly. No. That's it, right? Like if we were a Premier League team still, for me it would be like a no-brainer. Like, yeah, we can get this deal done.
Exactly.
But what I would say is from some of the Danish forums that took me a while to translate. I should have just asked Duck to translate instead of using Google.
You've got me, mate.
They were saying that he is a leader in that Brøndby team. Some of them were saying, like, not a captain or anything, but he does have quite a leader personality. And of course, he's not he's not like he's not linked with all the big clubs in Europe yet, so he maybe still is slightly undervalued. That price will only increase.
The price is definitely a fair price. It's more if we can either afford it and if he wants to come, right? Because he will only get more expensive. if when he gets sold. Yeah, no doubt about that.
But yeah, if we go to the next slide, Anil, I mean, I was going to say just a couple more points. So, I mean, you can see there the playing style, quick, he's agile, as we've just seen, he's direct, linked with Celtic and Lazio. And you can see there, obviously, not the best of scoring stats. 11 goals this season in 19 games. It's not bad.
pretty good.
More.
He
scored around. I think he scored around 18. The problem is the Super League is split in two halfway through.
Yeah,
it becomes the championship round, and I don't believe that is included in the graphic you have there, where he scored around 7 more. So he is one of the top scorers in this the Danish season. Just
so obviously, as I've said here, this is the ambitious of my two. I mean, he might be unobtainable. I think Bromby, like we said, transfer market said 8. I think Bromby would probably ask for more than 10.
Yeah.
And of course, he may not wish to drop to the championship, especially if there are some clubs like Celtic is one of the clubs that are linked, and they're playing Champions League. That obviously that would be you'd think he'd favour. But I would say, pitch him, because my next pick is not a guaranteed starter. I think this guy would be. Pitch him the number 9, the famous Leicester City number 9 shirt. Sell a project to him, invest in him. There's not going to be a Vardy, right, in the way to compete for his starting spot as Iheanacho and Daka had. And as I said, I think he would certainly be a starter for us ahead of Daka and Ayew. So, yeah, this is my first pick. I am sold on this guy.
Just quickly, Locks, can I ask you?
We can count Locks out. We could count Locks out the running, can't we? Because he's picked a player he's just admitted isn't a starter, and he's picked a Champions League standard player. So he's not
Champions League standard. If he stays, he would be playing potentially Conference League.
That's my question.
I don't think he'll go there.
Do you think that this guy is Premier League quality? Because one thing I was going to say or suggest is that it's very rare these days that you have a player that in the Championship also proves that they can do it in the Premier League. I know that Liam Delap has kind of done it this season, but he didn't really do it in the Championship, bizarrely enough. He did it in the Premier League. The last ones that I can really remember I would say the Brentford 2 of Ivan Toney and before him, Ollie Watkins. I think they were signings who were doing it in the Championship. They came up and they proved that they could do it in the Premier League. But you see it so often. Adam Armstrong, who did Burnley have up front when Vincent Kompany was in charge? A lot of these strikers, Cameron Archer's another one that they don't really seem to make it. So that's another issue as well. I will say this though, for a lot, I can see where you sold them. I think this guy would demolish the Championship based on what I've seen here. I can see LCFC DP was absolutely saying, yeah, it reminds me of Jokeres, and I've seen enough of him. But I think it's very fair. I'll pass to you, Michael. You were saying, is this cheating? Is what you are suggesting?
He can't talk.
Well, I'm going to get slandered for one of my players, but no, I thought the whole point of this was that we were going to pitch the ideas to the fans and they pick the best. But if I could pick Edison Cavani just to win the competition, I would. But no,
this guy is not.
Play.
All right, Doc. In my opinion, this guy isn't like.
You just said he's linked to Celtic and Lazio.
He's been linked to Celtic for more than a year, by the way.
He's been linked to Celtic. Yeah, he's been linked to Celtic for a long time. They've not done the deal. They've not tried to get that deal over the line. But Doc, I mean, you can tell us. Take your red and white tinted glasses off. I think this guy is unobtainable because of the financial issues at the club with PSR and all of that. But you saw us go and spend 9 million on Harry Winks. You saw Leeds spend 12 million on Joel Pirou. I think if the PSR problems weren't there, we could quite easily put down a 10, 11, 12 million pound offer for this guy.
If the PSR problems weren't there, we'd be able to afford the price. Then it's just a question of pitching him the right project, right? Because he would have to turn down either Champions League football and trophies in Scotland or Bundesliga, Serie A, or whatever for us. So that's the big thing there. I like him. I think he would smash it in the Championship. And with the year in the Championship, he would likely be able to do well in the Premier League as well. I think he has potential to play there. I'm not going to certainly say that he will be dominant up there, but I think he could be a starting Premier League striker. No doubt about that in my mind. So yeah. Okay, let's move on.
Oh, he looked fit.
So we're going to pass over to you now, Doug. Here you go.
Yeah. Could you? There we go. So this is my goals, what I wanted to do coming into this. And I'm going to be a little bit cheeky here as well soon. But I want shrewd signings who could get us around 15 plus goals. I don't want high wages because not only the transfer fees, but the wages have been an issue as well. I want a short-term striker who can just get us potentially back up. And then when we have more money, when PSR is less of a risk, or we can invest in someone like Chris Gorn, a type of player like him. That's what I want. And don't worry, not all of them are Danes. I'm going to skip through the first two because I did kind of lie a bit. I found a few free agents, and I made this before I completed. But Emil Ries, free agent, championship proven, got multiple 10 goals. So he would be a good squad player. Lucas Nemecha, he's at a free. I think his wages might be a bit too high. He has been thought of a very high ceiling, and he's a brilliant target man, despite only playing 500 minutes last season. The stats did look quite good, but this is a wild card. But that's not the big one. Let's get to the real ones I've actually picked. These guys will demand a bit of a transfer fee, and the reason I'm having this jersey behind me, it's my local football club from the town I grew up in, Nestel. This guy is the best player to come out of that club in my lifetime. Mileta Rajovic had a breakthrough season 3 or 2.5 years ago in Nestel, where he, in the second division, easily were a top scorer, sold to Kalmar in Sweden. Then half a year later than that, sold to Watford in the championship, where he scored 10 goals in his first season in what I believe is only, 1,500 minutes or something like that. This season, though, he was loaned out to Brøndby, played second fiddle to Mathias Kvistgaard. Not quite the same level, but he should only be around a few million quid. He is a natural goal scorer. He is the target man we would need. He's not one to really create chances, I want to say. He's someone who just finished them. Put him in front of a goal with a ball and he'll score the chance. He has a bit of Jamie Vardy about him, not in terms of the build, but in terms of the energy, the passion, and the hunger he brings. This is for my local club, by the way. That's my local football team. He just absolutely demolished in that division. His wages would be, I think, relatively cheap. I don't think Watford give the most diluted wages out there. But he has stagnated a bit this season. Didn't become the coup that Brøndby wanted. Not playing too much because Mathias Kvistgaard was just so good. But I'm not sure his body can handle 40 games as a starter. He's not on a free compared to the two I showed before. But he is the finisher we need. I don't think he needs to be creating the chances. I think he just needs to finish them, and he would do that job for us. Any questions?
Can I ask a question? Yeah. Can I? So is this guy the Kvistgaard from Timu? This is the budget Kvistgaard.
They are very different players. Very different players.
I'm joking. This guy looks good. Obviously cheaper. What's his valuation?
I think it was like 2 million quid or something. And I don't think they want much more. He didn't play. He got loaned out last season, remember, right? So he's not a starter in Watford's plans. And I think give him a team where we create the chances around him and he'll put them away. And that is just what we really need right now, in my opinion. Because I think the young talents we have coming through will be able to, create the chances. Jeremy Monk, your Jake Evans and whatever. And then we just need someone to put the ball in the back of the net. That's really all I think we need.
What standard of football is this, Duck? We're about to ask that now.
These highlights are from the second Danish division. I didn't pull these up, by the way, but he was scoring for fun in that league.
Okay.
What's he like with his back to goal? I mean, to be fair, in these clips, he scored left foot, right foot, with his head, inside the box, outside the box. He seems pretty physical. I'm kind of surprised that you say you don't think he'd play 40 games because he looks like quite a unit.
I
you
think
can see the car park in most of these videos, though.
The thing is, he just hasn't done it in ages, right? Like he hasn't played 40 games a season before. A lot of them were substitute appearances from Watford, and he came in and saved multiple games. So he can do it in the championship, and I think he would do great for us. And he's a lethal finisher, and that's what we really need.
And sorry, how old is he again?
I think he's 23, 24, 25 maybe. He's a bit older now, but he's in his mid-20s. So he's still got a long way to go. And I think if we got promoted, he would be someone I would love to have on the bench. Sign a new 25. Number 9. Sub him in with 50 minutes to go, 20 minutes when you're chasing a goal. And he could either bang in the brilliant goal or he could win the header. And Dalbster, stop looking at stats, mate. I've seen him with my eyes. Look at his stats in the championship last season for Watford, by the way. 10 goals, outperforming his XG, despite only playing a few, not too many minutes. Look at the goal per minute ratio in the championship. For a mid-table team, that's not bad. But let's move on to my second player, unless there are any further questions.
No, go on. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have something, Lux?
Well, no. You go on. You go. Let's see the next one. Here we go.
Let me introduce to you Mohamed Fusaini. This guy, I believe, came from the Right to Dream Academy. He played a bit in Sturm Graz, but didn't break through. 1 year ago, he had a loan in the spring for Randers in Denmark, and he lit up the league, earning a brilliant move to Union Saint-Gilloise, where he is now just won the league with them for the first time in 30, 50 years. He is not just fast, he is absolutely electric with his pace, rapid. He is good finisher, he's pace, he has a bit of Patsandaka about him with the good things we saw in the highlights earlier, but just still good. His wages won't be too high as he's coming from Belgium. He would fit in well. I have seen multiple times that Fatah will repost his story on Instagram and vice versa. So there's someone there to help him settle in and make sure he's able to hit the ground running. I'd love to see a partnership with those two. And I think this guy has the ceiling to play for us in the Premier League as well. The consist, I think his valuation is around 4 million right now. I don't think we would get him for less than 5 million. So 5-6, which is still a decent chunk for what we will likely be able to spend. And he didn't play the full season as a starter in Union Saint-Gilloise. He had a few injuries, I believe, and wasn't really the main man there, but he did contribute throughout the season. And he's a bit small, as you can see. He's not a Ayew or even a Cresswell, but he's pacey and he's a treat to watch.
Yeah, fast twitch certified.
He is a fast twitch fiber. I say the thing.
You said it yourself, and just looking at this, it gives me massive Patsandaka vibes.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing.
But the good Patsandaka vibes, right?
The Salzburg version of Daka. That's if he's able to.
We need to make that distinction.
If he's able to replicate that in the Championship, then it'd be huge.
Is he realistic, do you think, Doug? Just because I think it's a fair point here from Ethan. USG competing in Europe. I think you said they won the league, right? They did also have that. Who was this guy, Mohamed Amoura? He went to the Bundesliga, right? So they have got a record of selling players on for. Although, as you say, he's not the main man, which I guess is your argument, right?
Yeah, he's not the main man. I'll say as well, Union Saint-Gilloise. They have to qualify for the Champions League first, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Belgium has a straight spot. I'm not sure, and I could see them dropping down a tier or two. I think we have a Fatah who can sell the deal to him as well, and. I mean, if we pitch him being a number 9 and, a regular starter, I think he could potentially choose that over getting a few minutes in European football. So I don't think he's unrealistic, but he is the most ambitious of the two signings here. But
what I would say as well, Doug, to back you up and to back myself up as well on and any other ambitious ones that do come up. I don't think we've gone crazy. We've not said any that are, impossible, but... as negative as I am about the club and how much of a shit show it is at the moment, some players will look at us as the ultimate stepping stone. I mean, you've seen how many players over the years that have come to Leicester, performed well, and wow, suddenly they're on an £80 million move to a Chelsea or a Man United, and they don't all go for that. Sometimes they go for less. I mean, Bilal El Khanous we're expecting to go for 20 million this summer, 25 million with the release clause. But there we go. There's another one that will probably be picked up by a Premier League club, an established Premier League club, or even a European Premier League club. So that is a big factor. That is a big factor.
Just shortly on this as well before we keep it for more questions or move on if we are. I think don't underestimate the fact that we have good recommendation from someone like Fatah or Mads Hermansen, who's had great experiences with us, right? Treated well by the fans, loved in the community. Fatah was mates with Finani. If he can pitch him the idea, and let's go back to Cresswell, right? I think he's unattainable, but if he gets a big move to Chelsea or whatever, all of a sudden Hermansen can say, I love my 2 years at Leicester, I think they're a great club to grow yourself, and they won't stand in your way of a future transfer. So to have those first-hand experiences from people who they trust, I think could be a difference maker.
Okay. Well, here we go. Michael, what have you got to say about this pick you've chosen, mate?
I'd like to make a massive apology to Locks for the abuse I just gave him for Kvistgarden and the fact that he's an unrealistic transfer, because upon further research into Fabio Silva, this is probably the most unrealistic player on the list. I worked off the basis that Ruud van Nistelrooy might still be our manager come the start of the season. We've also been linked to many managers, but the decision hasn't been made yet. And arguably some better suited types have already found homes. But yeah, Fabio Silva, incredibly audacious from me. I apologize. A loan with an option or obligation to buy is the only way this is going to work, because his valuation is something around the sort of £17 million mark. And clubs like Real Betis are sniffing around for him already. But what I would like to add to this, to my previous comment about having to sign a striker or not having to sign a striker, if you are going to sign one, they have to be of the quality of a Fabio Silva. I don't want us to be spending the same amount of money on the likes of a Sargent from Norwich who isn't going to be good enough. If we are going to be paying 10 to 20 million pounds for a player, I want one who's going to come in, fix a problem and elevate the team massively. Fabio Silva, go on.
I was going to say, I personally don't think that like Fabio Silva is better than Josh Sargent. Like I don't think there's that much of a gap. I mean, I think if you stuck Josh Sargent in La Liga, I think he'd probably put up similar numbers as long as he stayed fit. The problem with Josh Sargent is he's quite injury prone. I mean, this guy, you know, the 20 million euro price tag on his name, that is solely because of this season. Like, I think...
But very inflated, for sure.
He was signed for 40 million by Wolves originally, wasn't he? He was considered one of the best prospects in Portuguese football, but he went way too early, didn't he? But I mean... And
he was a stinker. He stuck the place out, you know what I mean? But he has found... This season, you know, he's found a good home in Las Palmas and he's been able to put up really, really good numbers. I mean, you know, he's challenged to a starting spot by fucking Oliver McBurney. That's his backup player up front. So I hear you, Michael. I don't think
he is only 22 years old though. So like
22.
He's 22 years old, and what did he join Wolves maybe 3 seasons ago? So to like mock a 19-year-old for stinking the gaff out in the Premier League, I think that's quite harsh, if I'm honest with you. Lot.
Yeah, for sure.
You're coming now though from the angle alone, right? When the price tag is that much, you're saying alone.
It has to be a loan. The concern with it is that Wolves will almost certainly want to cash in on the fact that this price is the most inflated it's been in years. It was down a lot lower the year before. So they're most probably not going to be as open to loaning. But I think he's the perfect sort of mold of a striker. He shows a lot of pace. A lot of the goals he also scored were crosses in the box, making the sort of late runs. I think if we are going to have someone like Ruud van Nistelrooy, he's in charge. That's what he wants. You know, he wants players to win headers. He wants players to get on the end of crosses. And I think Fabio Silva can do that and quite a bit more as well. But yeah, no, I hold my hands up, guys. He's a honking selection price-wise.
One thing I will say to defend you, Michael, and this is where I suggest there might have been inspiration from your choice. Every time I play FM, without a question of a doubt, if I'm not playing as Leicester sign this player. I don't know why. They always do it, and he always does pretty well for them, to be honest with you. So I don't know if you're an FM aficionado, but that's what that game says. But to be fair, that's when they're in the Premier League, not the Championship, which I guess is the sort of thing that works the entry. But look, I mean,
my football manager days ended in 2009 when Mario Balotelli was the wonder kid you just had to sign wherever you went. He was amazing.
Yeah, why do you think those stats are very good? For me, I think it's not even the price. I just think if you've just scored 10 goals in La Liga, there's no way you're going to the Championship, in my opinion. I just don't see why a player would do that. But as you say, if you don't ask, you don't get. So who knows? Who knows what will happen? So I'm going to move it on to one of my suggestions then. So mine is also a loan signing. So I think a bit like I'm imagining the imaginary Luke in my ear saying we're broke, we've got no money, you've got to go people that are either dirt cheap or we're going to get on loan. Well, Man United, they've just had an awful season and they're not going to be playing in Europe. And so I think they are going to be signing another striker. I think, to be fair, they're going to get rid of another Dane themselves in Rasmus Højlund. But they will probably sign a striker. And I think that this guy, Cheeto Obi Martin, will probably be available. Now, he's going to be 18 this year. So he's very young. But as you can see, he's 6'2", very physical. They actually got him from the Arsenal Academy, would you believe? He is actually Danish as well. He might not look it, but he is. He's a Danish striker. And so I've got a feeling that, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I think probably Patson Daka, maybe even Jordan Ayew are going to be probably the two that are going to be competing up top. But with you having 46 games, you have to have people that can push them for their positions. And I think the way that we could probably pitch this is we do loan a player from one of the top Premier League teams, and that player comes to Leicester. They're going to be playing between 20 and 25 games. And if they're really good, they'll actually force their way into the first team and really inflate their value. I could even see, although it's unlikely, there being a possibility that a player would end up being on loan with us for 2 seasons, as crazy as that would sound. Because if we did get promoted, they might stay again. But yeah, this guy, really high potential. Maybe Andreas can speak more of it, but he's super fast, super strong. I think what impresses me a lot here as well, though, is I think he's really good with his back to goal, which I think realistically, it was mentioned by a few people here. Well, no point having strikers if we pass the ball around the back for 90 minutes. Well, what I mean by that is I think we are going to be playing a lot of teams that are deep. Looks like he receives the ball with his back turned, now runs forward. I mean, this is actually great play from him. Shimmies a little round and finishes. Bang. Very tidy. So I think you've got someone who's quite raw, but has clearly got the talent. I think he's someone that needs game time. I think we're a club that can't really afford to get as many players as we would like to. So I think this could be one of those deals where it suits everybody. I think it would be good for their career. We'd also be playing with lots of youngsters. They're left foot finishing, right foot finishing, headers. Now, look, I will say that I'm showing you youth team football. So, that's a good, you could say that's a red flag and against me. But, we've got youth team players ourselves that are going to be playing a big part in the team this season too. And as I say, the expectation wouldn't be that he'd be the main person, but be the one that's sort of there to be playing minimum sort of 30 minutes every game, with the idea that probably around sort of December time, they might really stake a claim for it. They might even be the leading man come the end of the season. So that's a potential one. Maybe Andreas, you can speak more.
I have so much more to say on this guy. I followed him for years. Go on, Mike.
Before Andreas jumps in and gets a real deep dive, he is a serious football player. From the bits I've watched him in the Premier League, he is fantastic. He's come on and he's made Højlund, a £65 million signing, look absolutely woeful. I mean, he does that by himself anyway. But if we can get Cheeto Obi Martin, oh my God, I would cream in my pants.
He is. I don't even believe this is my red and white tinted glasses. He's one of the highest rated young strikers in the world, or in Europe at the very least. He scored 10 goals in one game against Liverpool's U16 when he was 16. So when he went down to play his age group a few years ago, not a few years, 1.5 years ago for Arsenal's academy, like it looked like men versus boys, and he was their age. He's played consistently with the U21s at Arsenal before. He even trained with the main team last season at Arsenal as well before he then went on to Man United because he liked the pathway that was offered to him. And I know he also spoke about that Van Nistelrooy was a big part of his decision to move to Man United. So maybe if he stays, I know at the very least it was something that he talked about in an interview that he did very much rate how Van Nistelrooy was with him and what he promised in that pathway. So he's just recently on their tour to Malaysia, that weird thing they had there, scored his first senior goal. I would love to have him on loan and have Leicester be a part of his history because I'm sure he has a very high ceiling, even higher than the ambitions that we have for ourselves. But I mean, he's brilliant, absolutely brilliant player.
And one correction, he's even younger now. He's actually still 17, which is crazy.
Will he be by the time August was? But that is incredible if that is the
November,
case.
I think. Yeah.
No, wow. I mean, see, that is what I think maybe does work in our favour. That even if you are that good, I mean, look, I agree. Some people in chat have been saying that Man United are probably going to want to keep him, especially if they want Højlund not to play. But I don't know. You'll be surprised. It could be one of those where they say, do you know what? If you are literally going to be getting a game, playing pretty much every week, the asset value will increase and they can utilize him when ready. I mean, they've still got Xerxes there at Man United. They're probably going to sign someone else. So, just quickly, I think I've put in yellow. That's kind of neither good nor bad because it's not a permanent signing, but we could do him for a year. 6'2", ideal height. He's quick though for that. He's strong. He can handle the English game already. That's something you've got to consider. But he can play with his back to goal. Like I said, I think unfortunately that's going to be a lot of our games that we have this season, and he can score all types of goals. So I think he's an interesting one. I don't know how realistic he is, but if you don't ask, you don't get. And in case the videos weren't working, just going to sort of show you some examples. But look, now I'm going to move on to a bit of a wild card signing. Luke, if he's watching from down under, this is a guy that he's obsessed with this guy. I don't know why he's obsessed with him, but to be fair, maybe there is a reason why. So he has suggested Lawrence Shankland, who's at Hearts at the moment, but he is actually available on a free transfer because his contract is up and he might be signing a new contract with Hearts, but there are interest from other teams. I think specifically in the Championship. Supposedly also Lazio are interested. They seem to just be the club that's whacked in for anyone right now. That's why Lazio are linked with all of our players as well. But Shankland, to be fair to him, across 2 seasons, he scored somewhere between 50 goals when he was at Hearts. The last season that he had, I have to be honest, I think he only scored something like 7 goals. But again, maybe with the contract being up, it could have been something that Fabio's get to. Man, look at some of these finishes; they're pretty good. Now, of course, Michael, you have mentioned the sort of car park background that we saw with some of the Danish players. I mean, the Scottish League, it's up to you to see what you do or don't think about it. There are some good teams, there are some not so good teams. And yeah, I think Frankie here has got the sort of word of caution. And remember when we signed Mark De Vries from Hearts. But this is Lawrence Shankland. Look, Luke isn't here to defend him. So guys, just tell me, what are you seeing? Free transfer? Maybe you could get him for a year or two. Probably going to be fairly cheap wages.
What was his age, sorry?
He's 29 at the moment.
29.
Yeah. Which is why I write it off, rightly or wrongly. Like, I know it's free, and I suppose it's a squad option, but you know, I don't quite agree with what Michael said at the start about not needing a striker. I would say we do need a striker, but we need,
but not this badly.
Yeah,
Savage.
yeah. Basically, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I just don't think this is the guy that we need, to be honest with you. But I would say he would probably be a very good Championship striker. Like, I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's what we should get, to be fair.
I think you will see him in the Championship this season. I'm just not sure it's going to be with Leicester, but I can see it, to be honest with you. And I think, yeah, as I mentioned, let me just bring it up where it is. Yeah, so he's a free agent, 29 years old, linked with West Bromwich Albion even. And here you can see some of his stats. Only the 7 goals last season. Although 8 assists is quite impressive. But look at these 2 standout seasons, 24 goals in 2 separate seasons. He was voted Scottish Player of the Year, despite playing for Hearts in one of those seasons. Free, look, I mean, to be fair to Luke, he's saying if you've got no money to spend and you need a striker and you need someone who's available and you need someone who can play the English game, or a Scottish game, but is close enough. Yeah, I think this is a decent comment there. Shankland could be worth a punt. He's at decent international level, but if the prices are right. But maybe this is where I was to say a good player for Wrexham. That might be more the sort of team that you see him for. But I don't think that's the worst shout. Now, coming back to you, Lux, I believe. And this, I'm going to bring up a starred comment all the way from the beginning of the stream. Right. Is he Lux in disguise? He came up and he said, one striker I really like is Richard Kone. Is it Kone or Kone? Not sure.
Kone, I'm guessing it's Kone. Yeah. This guy, I really like the look of. And one big part of that is look at the price tag. And for me, that's a big factor in it because it is risk free. Now, I'm not saying he'd be 500k or less than that. A mil, maybe 2, maybe 3. I don't know, but it's going to be that cheap for me. I think it's risk free. Now, the interesting thing with this guy is, the clips you'll see, they're really good. But the interesting thing with this guy is that he made a big step up from the National League, and he had a trial with Wickham, and he's taken that big step up really well. League 2, his first full season, by the way, that stat that you brought up, 18 goals. This was his first full season in.
Are you implying this is the second coming of Jamie Vardy, Locks? Because
well,
if so,
look, I'm saying that some people maybe aren't mentally mentally and technically they can't make that big step up from the National League to League One. I know Vardy did the Championship, but this guy did it in literally 6 months. He came in January, he scored a few goals, not too many, and then the following season, his first full pre-season, he's smashed the goals in. So for me, for such a cheap price, I think this is a risk-free signing that,
they in fact, Wickham, they made this a surprise promotion challenge because of this guy. Like exactly. No one, I think they were even suggesting they might go down last season, and they actually bottled it. They, I think, were like 3 or 4 points clear with 4 games to go, and unfortunately all fell away from them. But you can see, I mean, it's a very interesting story. I mean, look, there's loads of positive comments about him in the chat. Yeah,
look at the pace. There he goes.
Absolutely.
Now, I actually say, I was going to say, I say him on one of the slides in a second that he's not fast twitch certified. I actually disagree now. The more I've seen him, I think he is fast twitch certified. Yeah. And again, just like the Dane, I won't say his name, but he's got a hell of a finish on him as well. I mean, you see from some of the highlights, and he can score from different types of goals. I've seen him score some headers as well. If you go to the next slide, Anil, I think I say it. Let's have a look. Here it is. So 18 goals in his first full season. He is pacey and has, in my opinion, that Vardy pest side to his game. What I mean by that is, he doesn't give up any half chances. If there's a half chance, he will chase that ball and he will try and win it. And I think that's perfect because that shows fight and determination, and that's something that we're lacking as well. So, with the current state of our strikers, it wouldn't surprise me if this guy came in and became a starter for us. And I suppose that's just damning towards the players that we've got. But yeah, I think, again, I'll say it again because I think it's important. Cheap and risk-free. You can afford for this one to not work out if you bring him in. So yeah,
it'd be cheap wages, I think as well. The one question
wages
I would have, they're gonna be cheap. I was gonna ask is more, what would he be like against teams with a deep block? Because I think that something we saw from the highlights is that a lot of the teams they were playing against were fairly open, given that Wickham were not expected to be big challengers. But look, I'm not holding that against him. Jamie Vardy proved that he could play against deep blocks. That was something that people said, he's only good at playing in behind. The last time in behind under Brendan Rodgers and under Enzo Maresca, even aging, he proved that he could play as a false nine. So it can be taught. It could be something that's there. I would also say, I think what's good with, also Vulox as well, is that if we go under the assumption that he's not coming in as the starting striker, but he's going to be the understudy and he's going to be getting minutes and he's going to be developing with the rest of a young team, again, could be ideal, right? You start with your Dakas and your Ayews, you tease this guy in. All of a sudden, he's actually better than the guys that are starting, so he starts instead. That's kind of the success story you want. And as you say, if it goes wrong for £2 million, £3 million, even £5 million, let's be honest, for our team, that's outrageous in the Championship. But for a Premier League team, you don't really lose too much sleep over that sort of price, do you?
And sticking to the the style of play chat there, I mean, he is actually quite physical. Unlike Daka, who, as Luke says, gets blown over by a breeze. I don't see that from this guy. I think he would be able to adapt to different
Essex Senior Football League, mate. Streets don't forget.
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. So you can see it there, right? So he came from the Essex Senior Football League to Wickham in January, played 17 games, scored 3, got 3 assists, and the first full season, 18 goals. I mean, for me, that shows that it's impressive, and I don't see why he couldn't take another step up to the Championship, because we know the biggest jump in quality is the Championship to the Premier League. That's a different kettle of fish, but from League One to the Championship, I think he could make that step up. So yeah.
Locks is
look at the Ipswich team, right? A lot of those
right now.
Look at that Ipswich team. A lot of them made the jump up to the Championship quite easily.
I think I like the low risk and the age as well, right? Because that's the issue I had when I looked at these free transfers. It was very much he'll do a job for us now. He'll get the goals we need, but there's no long term ceiling here that tells you if we get promoted, he could in the future be a number one. Where here, he might not necessarily be that. But he has the potential to maybe be that, because considering how well he's adapted to League One football, right, in a relatively short amount of time as a very young player as well. So the price tag as well, obviously something I like. And I think it looks good.
Yeah, you could probably sell him again to a Championship team, even if you got promoted. Like for him, he's living the dream pretty much, right? As you say, he's already made a huge jump up.
He would be very easy to get profit on, right? Even just 5 million, if it doesn't work out when we get promoted, whatever, that'll be 4 million profit. It would be brilliant.
Well, you got another chap who's 21 years old. We're going to move on to Michael's second pick. Less audacious, I would say. So why don't you talk to me about Dane Scarlet?
A very reasonable purchase, this one. I think Spurs are going to want to get rid of him now. He's very young, as I say, 21, still very raw, but he stands at 6 foot tall and is most probably going to cost no more than 5 million, let's say. I mean, transfer market, I'd have it down as 2. I'd say 5 million is like the highest you'd want to pay for someone like him. Obviously, came through the youth academy at Tottenham, and he obviously has a youth career in England as well. I think we should be signing a player like this in the Championship, because he could prove to be a bit of a steal. Now, his goal record is very patchy, but he has been a bit part player both 2 seasons ago at Ipswich and this season at Oxford as well. But yeah, just judging from compilations that I saw, have a friend who's an Oxford fan as well, and he sort of gave him a bit of a big up. Scored a goal in the Europa League, so we're not talking about any car parks in the Europa League. I wonder if he's a player that just needs a good run of games and some experience. If you can fit him in amongst the strikers that we've already spoken about, I could see him being a bit of a Dom Solanke type. You mentioned it, didn't you, Anil? You said Mbeumo and Tony might be the only ones to jump from the Championship to the Premier League, but Dom Solanke was another one.
Yeah, great.
At Liverpool, he was also like, he's not going to make it in the Premier League, is he? And then he went to Bournemouth and he really managed to propel his career, ended up scoring 19 goals like 2 seasons ago for a Bournemouth side. And if it wasn't for injuries, you'd likely have seen him do sort of 15 goals in the Premier League. He fits that mold that we had in the past, where you buy a young player, you potentially sell them on, you buy them young, you buy them cheap, and then, they're a sellable asset in the future. I think Dane Scarlet could be an interesting prospect for us.
And another one, cheap, so risk-free.
Another,
exactly. Saying though, like either the options are you can either, as Mike said, they might want to just get rid of him at this point. Spurs, at that point, he'll either be cheap or you can get him on a loan. Maybe a loan with an option, a loan with obligation, whatever it is. But he's not going to cost £5-10 million. I don't think this guy. Maybe 5 at a push. It will be cheap, and as we keep saying, that is risk free. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that I think this is a very realistic one. It's funny, you've got Fabio Silva and then you've got this guy. I think of the two of them, there's certainly, fair enough, you played one for the ambitious one and one for the one that's super realistic. I think it's pretty obvious that Dane Scarlet will be playing in the Championship this season, and it's a question of what club will he play for. And as you say, maybe if he comes in and he's not expected to be the main man, I can tell you that I do know, Rise brought this quote up from Jose Mourinho, and I remember as well, you are right, around this sort of time, there was quite a lot of hype around him when he was sort of, I think, 17, 18 years old, that he was expected to be pretty good. I mean, this happens a lot. Like Spurs have got some good prospects at the moment, like Will Lancashire and Mikey Moore, and who knows if they're going to make it. So he obviously hasn't hit the grade yet, but you do get players who bloom quite late. The late bloomer in Football Manager, Jamie Vardy, great example, Keane and Dewsbury Hall. I will say maybe the sort of downsides is that I think at Ipswich, he wasn't really impressing Kieran McKenna too much, who picked George Hurst. And I believe he questioned some of his sort of professionalism and he was sent back. But then he did do well at Oxford with Ben Nelson, and he was actually recalled, as you say, by Spurs. I mean, they had a lot of horrific injuries, but the fact that he got game time and did score some goals is fair enough. So as I think he was saying, if Locke said there earlier, didn't you? Said you think we do need a striker, and if you do need a striker, but you don't necessarily need that striker who's going to be the main man, but you just need someone who's good in the Championship, who's got upside potential, who is fast, who is technical. There are a lot of boxes to tick, so I don't think this is. I think it ticks all the boxes. I think it's one of those that it doesn't. Do you know what? It's like doing your shopping in Aldi. Right, no one's going to be impressed, but you know what? When you get home and you look at how much you've saved on your bill, I'm proper glazing for Aldi here.
Hey, I like Aldi.
Pretty nice. You're feeling pretty smug with yourself. Aren't you? Think I'm good at shopping, mate.
Another one who just came to my mind there. Oh no, go on, Duck. If you have something to say on Dane Scarlet,
just shortly on Dane Scarlet. I think having watched him a bit at Oxford, I didn't really rate him that, to be honest. I know that he's had this very high ceiling that's been talked about by very knowledgeable people around football. And that's why I would be open to give him a second shot. I don't think he's impressed all too much with the bit I saw at Oxford. Obviously, the same at Ipswich. So questions for me is, could he go in and be our main number one? But I don't think this would be a poor addition if we are completely overhauling our strikers. And, I give him a bit of the benefit of the doubt. I think he could definitely play at the Championship level. I think he has the potential for the Premier League. It's just not come good yet, right? And I'm not over the moon for this one, but I think it's very realistic. And I do think... I'll leave myself open to the transfer.
And I was going to say, I don't know how confident the club are. No one knows how confident the club are of getting promoted straight away again. But it might be a stopgap that they're looking for, because when we're in the Premier League, when we're a Premier League club, that is going to be the easiest opportunity to actually bring somebody in who is a clear starter and maybe someone that we can have for some time. And if they need to fill the squad with a player like Dane Scarlet or another one, I don't know, like Richard Kone, like I mentioned, that little plug. But that is maybe a decision that the club take. A stopgap for.
I think that's a more than fair decision for them to make as well, because as I alluded to right at the start of the show, at the Championship level of strikers you're fishing round for, if it is going to be a Tom Cannon style striker, they're not. You're going to need to re-jump back into the market again, and that's obviously, given our financial situation, that's not where we want to be.
Yeah, interesting. We'll move on. I will say this one's got these sort of Nile Ranger vibes. Do you remember him? Harry Kane back in the Championship. Where every season we had one of these sort of strikers from the Premier League. It's incredible. Harry Kane, you'd never have thought when he played for Leicester that he'd go on to be England's best ever striker. He just didn't look like that player at all. I heard we even had the option to take Kane on a permanent, believe it or not, which sounds crazy, but
we offered it was Sheringham. What's his first name? The old Spurs boss.
Teddy Sheringham.
No, the Spurs.
Oh, Tim Sherwood.
Tim Sherwood.
Yeah.
He said that Leicester put in a transfer offer for Kane, and Levy, Daniel Levy said, "Yeah, he's going. We're selling him." And Tim Sherwood basically had to battle him to say no, he's not going anywhere. And obviously Tim Sherwood won, and look what happened. Look what he turned into. So.
Fair play. Well, it's funny because I didn't really think he was too impressive at the time. And yeah, Ben bringing up Nathan Delfonso. Oh my God, there were some
Nigel Pearson clearly saw something in Il, which we know he does, right? He's got an eye.
Great eye for a player is old Nigel. So we recommended him from Director of Football, didn't we? Well, all right, to round off the show, this is my last pick. This is Yusuf Arabi. He's a Swedish Algerian player. He's currently playing for, Duck can probably pronounce the club far better than me, I believe. Hamabi, there you go. Valued at around 6 million euros. I think it'd probably be more like 8 to 10 million. 22 years old. And I'll show you some clips of him here in my Brazil scout video that I've got here. So I actually went on a couple of YouTube clips, and funnily enough, there was a few people saying he's on his way to Leicester. Now, I don't know what to make of that. It wasn't just me posting maliciously, but it's interesting you say that. But I think we might have been linked to this player in the past. And I believe the reason for that is if you look at the way that he's played, I think that this guy is quite good in that sort of dropping deep false nine position, linking up the play and letting other teams come on. And I think he plays for quite a dominant team in Sweden, and that's sort of what helps him sort of be good at that. So I think there's a lot to like here. Good shot. I think he's quite strong. He's 6 foot, quite stocky, fairly agile. I will say, look, and this is actually a question for all of the panel, though, which is that one thing I noticed about doing the scouting report for all of these players is how many of these players do you genuinely get excited for? And what I mean by that is that I do wonder if that we do need someone who's like the equivalent of what Leeds did with Joel Pirot, where I don't think Joel Pirot is going to make it in the Premier League, but fair play, he was a Championship top scorer this season and they got 100 points and they got promoted. Josh Sargent sort of thing. And I don't think we can afford to spend 12, 15 million, but maybe 6 to 8 that we spend that on Tom Cannon, I believe was 7.5. So seeing someone like this, that's a pretty howitzer of a shot. I think someone like this, when I look at him, I think I see someone that I think would do well in a Championship. I guess is what I'm saying. I think he doesn't look as fast as some of the other players that we've seen on the list. I will grant you that, but I do think he looks better at linking up the play. He's got the physicality. I think this is someone that I think would do well in Championship football. I will say I'm less convinced about Premier League, but I guess what I'm saying as well is I think that we have to be a bit realistic here, which is that when you're seeing players like Rasmus Højlund failing at big clubs on big money, there's such a step up, isn't there, from Championship to Premier League, that maybe it's a problem that you have to just be a bit more like, okay, what do we decide to fix this season and what do we decide to fix next season if we go up and we've got a better budget to buy better players? I don't know. That's something that I'm happy to have the conversation. I'm not going to sort of say one way or another. Go on, Doug, please.
I'll say as well to a lot of this as well is the fact that we don't know who the manager will be, right? We don't know the sort of style of football we'll be playing. That's why I came with 2 very different recommendations. One, like, do we just want a target man or do we want someone who can do something different? Because it'll all depend on which manager will be there. Will it be Ruud? Will it be someone else? And all of these things, right? That only time will realistically tell. So we'll wait and see. I like this recommendation. He does give you a bit of Rajovic vibes, right? He feels a bit powerful, like these powerful strikers who, when they go up to win the ball, they win it because they're just that much stronger than their opponent. Yeah. And I like that. I think I don't necessarily want a quick, nimble striker. Obviously, I want him to have some pace on him. But I want someone who will get the ball somewhere close to the box and smash it home more often than not. I just want a lethal finisher who will finish the chances, who are brilliant attacking 3 already with Fatawu, Mabadidi, Monga, Evans, Will Alves, McAtee. All of these guys will be creating loads of chances next season. I just want someone who can put that in the box. But we'll see what the manager wants and who the manager will even be in due time.
Yeah, and look, I think, that's actually one of the sort of things that I'm pointing out is I think a player like this would actually have those 3 or 4 players scoring more goals because of his hold-up play and ability to link it, and also say his ability to mix it in the box. And I think it's interesting what you said there. Now, like, for what it's worth, I think when we were in the Premier League, we were crying out for a striker that was really fast, prolific, could beat the man, wasn't offside the whole time, he could finish and get yourself back to front of in 10 seconds. But I just remember all of our games in the Championship, even if we change our style somewhat, there's going to be so many teams that just sit there and park the bus. And look at how many clips here. He's in congestion. There's a lot of people surrounding him. He's able to get his way out of trouble, link up the play, find someone else, or alternatively, he's just a target man in the box and he out physicals the other players and he puts it in the back of the net. So I think that is why something like this profile fits. But as I say, I would happily admit that, like, if we were still in the Premier League, would I be looking at a player like this? No, I think I'd be looking for a slightly different profile. So horses for courses, and the course we're in this season is the Championship race. So there's something to be said.
It's the Ayew thing again, though, right? If we do go up and he is like the backup striker, not that we're going to be going in at half time or 70 minutes winning many games, but he'd be perfect to bring on to sort of lock a game down in the Premier League for sure. He looked really good. Admittedly, every player we've watched has looked absolutely phenomenal in these compilations. It's quite hard to get a real game. It's quite hard to get a gauge.
That's obviously the trick. That's obviously the trick. And I think it's fair as well. Look, I've tried to be like pros and cons. I think there's a lot of pros there, but I think to be fair, his record doesn't scream prolific. He's not one of those players. For example, I think the player that Locks showed was very interesting, playing for not a particularly good team. It might be in League One, but scoring that many goals in a kind of breakout seems to suggest that you're a player that's about to explode. Dare I say it, like a certain famous number 9 that I've got behind me on the wall there. That's something that suggests that it could be a prolific marksman. But as I say, you maybe have to pick your battles where you can kind of get to it. So that I believe is the end of our scouting report for this. But look, I'm sure chat's got a lot of suggestions they want to go through, so we can start bringing some of those up. And in the meantime, what I am going to do is I'm just going to quickly bring up, we've got a little voting form here. So if you want, who has won today is your last chance to get in your votes. Why should they be voting for Richard Kone? Why should they be voting for Mohammed? I forget what his name is. Why should they be voting for Fabio Silva? Get battle now. Who wants it?
Yeah, don't go anywhere, people. Get voting. The link is there now.
Bloody make right now.
I'll make the case for my players shortly. I think both of my players would do well in the Championship. I am confident they will slot right in. They're both very different styles, but they are realistic, obtainable players who won't cost a fortune.
Well, I went down the Michael route. Me and Michael did something similar. I went for one that was fairly ambitious and one that was kind of more very realistic. Richard Kone, I don't see in any world that's unrealistic. I think that's more than capable. And look, I don't want to. I haven't got access to the map. I actually think I've won this with Richard Kone. I can't lie. I think it's the one that makes the most sense. I think it's from what I've seen of him, from how he made that step up as well, the price tag. I think he's a no-brainer, but I think there are better options to start for us. I will say that. Who do I think Richard Kone is the best player on this stream? No, I don't.
You have to vote for 2, by the way, Locke. So even if you do win. Yeah, because I thought that there might be a dominant one. I'll be honest with you, I didn't see it. Fair play to you. Like I say, watch out for Locks if he turns up at your local estate agents, because you're going to be buying a house for about 20 grand more than you can afford with his salesman technique here. But who would be the second one? So that's what I want to see. That's why I thought you would go there.
The fans, I think, are going to vote for...
Yeah.
The fans, I think, are going to vote for Kone. I thought that was a really compelling case. If I had to pick one of these players to lead the line for Leicester next season, I'd be picking Cheeto Obi Martin. He is a fierce striker, and I think he's premium. Dane Scarlet, though. I mean, he's a very reasonable, realistic shout for a team who's going to have PSR problems. I think there is a player in there, and with the right management, I think we can unlock him. As I say, patchy goal record, but I think Dane Scarlet could have a breakout season next season wherever he ends up. And I want him to be
people on the panel. You're allowed to vote as well. Just going to throw that out there if you want to rig the vote in your own favor.
So that's your icon. That's your icon.
No, I won't vote for myself, but
that's giving I can fix him vibe. But I respect it. I think some of the players I've included as well have been a bit down on form. Like Miletarevic hasn't had the best season in Brøndby because he's been behind Kvistgaard, who we all saw looked really good and is a very good player as well. But yeah, I mean, I think there are some good options in here. I think I'm happy to see how so many realistic options as well, who I don't think are out of reach, who will do a job for us. And yeah, I think Cheeto Obi Martin is the second favorite for me, but I don't like loans in general when I feel like there are options who would do about the same job that we can keep, because let's see, he blows the league apart next season in the championship. You're like, oh, we can't keep him. Man United will be playing him week in, week out. And we're back to square one, whereas someone like Finani, I think, or Rajovic, if they hit the ground running in the championship, I'm confident that they could also do a decent job in the Premier League. And I think that would be really nice. Saying, yes, we might still need a new striker, but we have a solid number 2 who can play alongside them.
I'm just going to leave the votes open for about another minute. But one person who I'm surprised that no one picked, maybe it's a transfer fee. There was a lot of talk about him in chat whilst we were all having conversation. And that is Norwich's Josh Sargent. Now, I believe he scored 18 goals in the championship last season. Presses like a maniac. American international, that could be seen as good or bad. High work rate, good pressing team. Has played in the Premier League before, and it was when he was much younger. I am surprised that he just seems to be like a complete non-starter for people, because I do think he'd be expensive. But I'll be honest with you, I think if he goes to... I wouldn't be surprised, for example, if Ipswich signed him, you know, because they've lost Liam Delap, right? So they need to get a striker. Thoughts on Josh Sargent? I was just surprised that he didn't come up at all.
Yeah, we've all gone down the sort of rogue angle with a lot of our selections, haven't we? Rather than hitting the sort of more commonly chucked around transfer rumours. I think for the price you're going to be paying for him, it ends up sort of crippling your potential to sign a striker next season. That was one of the reasons why I wasn't too keen on him. I think he'd be a perfect player to get you back into the Premier League. And if we were Ipswich and we had that sort of championship super team, he'd be right on my list. But I'm not sure if he's right for us.
Yeah, the injuries scare me a little bit. And the fact that he hasn't made that step up yet to the Premier League, I think that's a bit of a concern. But yeah, look, I don't want to play my own trumpet here. I actually personally, and I am biased, of course, I think I've actually picked not only the best.
You're going on again.
I'm going on again.
No, you've picked someone who's out of our reach.
Hold on.
Come on.
Hold on. No. I'm saying Richard Kone, I think, is the signing that makes the most sense. But I also think I've picked the best player in Kvistgaard. That's what I genuinely believe. I think.
Yeah, but look, I could have picked Messi for this then. I could have picked Messi for this then and said I've picked the best player.
You've already admitted it's not impossible. Like that is a signing.
No, realistically, why do you think he's not on my scouting report? Because he's out of reach. We won't be getting him.
To make the argument for you. You couldn't even make the argument for yourself. Don't even know how to say his name right.
Okay, lads. Let's calm it down a little bit. Let's go for then. I love it.
You're a fraud, Lux.
Let me just before we go into it and chat as well. So, who do you think are the two? Who's the two that we've gone for? I think everyone seems to think that Richard Kone has won. Who's the second one? Who do you think
Cheeto.
You think Cheeto?
You know, I'm rooting for. I think Mohamed Finani. You know, maybe give some positive pets and Dhaka vibes that people will want to keep dreaming about, and hopefully a few people have picked him at the very least.
Yeah. I think it'll be Obi. Yeah.
I think it'll be Dane Scarlet for the red and white tinted glasses from the England fans.
Here we go to prove that there's no fixing. Richard Kone is your winner, and Cheeto is number 2. So,
I said. Look at Finani.
Pay rise for the lads here. Done better than me, but there you go. That's very interesting. And look at Luke. I feel a bit sorry for him. Lawrence Shankland on the 3, not a single vote.
Absolutely depressing when you realise I voted for Scarlet as well.
Do you know what though, Michael? The thing is as well, we do get a sort of attached to the shiny new toys, but you know, sometimes you have to make do with. I mean, it was like Bobby Reed and Jordan Ayew. I don't think anyone had those on their transfer pick list last time. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if someone like Scarlett turned up because, as I say, I think he's one of those that you don't. I can see the sensibility. I think he's not one of those exciting ones, but he's just quickly before you give me your thoughts on that. I mean, this has been talked a lot about chat. This is Devin Mubama now. He is the striker for Man City under 20s, under 21s. And, you got to look at Liam Delap. He's someone that came from Man City as one of their strikers. I mean, we had Kelechi Iheanacho at one point as well, so they didn't always make the grade. But he almost certainly, the way that Man City operate, will be on loan this season. Starred look in the PL2 playoffs. I think he even scored in that match. If anyone wants to speak about him, would that be some? He's again, I think he's a player that you will see in the Championship. Whether it be for Leicester or will he be for someone else? Oh, interesting. He went there from West Ham. Yeah, there's a lot of shouts from him. I got to say, I didn't pick him in my scouting research. It could be someone that we go for. Any thoughts?
I just don't like the idea of loans that much, unless it's someone who will go in and be a star player for us, and we're only getting because it's a loan and not. I don't want to sit there and develop Cheeto Obi Martin. It'd be nice to have Leicester on his resume when he becomes a big thing. But at the same time, I'd rather have
advocate. You're on minus 12 points at the start of the season, and your finances are stretched. That's all I'm saying is I think we might be a bit seduced by the last time that we got relegated when, as Logs mentions, we did some outrageous things like signing Harry Winks and giving him 70 grand in the Championship.
Yeah, for sure.
I bet you Plymouth, their entire squad wasn't on 70 grand a week.
I'll tell you then, like Militarievich, right? He would be a few million quid, or Richard Kone. I'd rather have them. I'd rather go. I showed like Emil Ries as a free signing. He would go in. He's 27 years old. He'll score 15 goals and he'll be a good squad player for us. Like, I'd rather have that than just develop Cheeto Obi Martin and then, make him a great player. Then he fucks back off to United and we never see him again. And we can only just dream about the memories we had with him.
Oh, we're going to see some more Kone. Love it.
Yeah. So look, I think it's only fair. We can probably round out the show, but the winner, the surprise winner, I've got to say, fair play to you, Logs. Wycombe Wanderers, Richard Kone. A bargain.
You know what?
Yep.
I was going to say, even if he doesn't come to Leicester, I'm going to be following this guy's career for the rest of my life, making sure that he gets, keeping tracks on it and coming back to this video. But no, look, he's 21 years. Just again, a summary: he's 21 years old. He's cheap as fuck. He knows where the back of the net is, and I think. I think he'd be able to make the step up to the Premier League, to the Championship. Sorry. So, but I like all of the suggestions today, other than probably Fabio Silva. That's probably the only one. But I don't hate the Dane Scarlet one. I don't hate the Lawrence Shankland one. It's. I think they're all. Most of them are sensible picks, and I actually think Doc's Mohammed's guy, whatever his surname is. I think he's a good pick as well. Obi, I'd be happy with the majority of these strikers that we've discussed today, but we know Leicester City will probably present us with a pile of shit instead. And as I said at the start, this is why we do this show, because we feel like even if we can make 0.01% of an impact, in some way, shape, or form, that's why we do this stuff. So
you'll have Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain as false nine, and you'll be happy about it.
I thought we were doing it for our ego, so we can come back and look at it when it all goes
and
well,
and that.
That's it. But don't mention that. That's just like in the fine print. We don't say that on broadcast.
Yeah.
Looks, what we got coming up on Blue Tinted Glasses?
We are going to have Fox's Den tomorrow night, and it's going to be get your tinfoil hats together, people, because we're going to be talking conspiracy theories. We're going to be putting our heads together and figuring out why we think Leicester haven't spoken or made any movement whatsoever so far. There's always these comments online and tweets from people saying, "Oh, it's because of the PS, the accounting period. Oh, it's because they're selling the club. Oh, it's because of this. It's because of that." So we're just gonna have a chat about it. We're gonna try and rack our brains and talk about why they haven't made any movement on the manager front. So we're missing out on managers. We're gonna miss out on players that are free agents. We're gonna miss out on. We could miss out on Richard Kone. We can't be having that. So we're gonna be talking about that tomorrow. But Scouting Report will be back next Tuesday. The next 2 Tuesdays, we're going to be talking about midfielders next Tuesday, and the Tuesday after that, it'll be defenders. We're going to cover it all.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, everyone in chat. Hope you enjoyed that. I found that quite a lot of fun, actually, with the voting and stuff like that. And next time, do you know what? Maybe what we'll try and do next time is that we'll get a shout from chat in and sneak it into the voting as well. I think that might be a good way of doing it.
Yes.
And maybe we can have a bit of a leaderboard. So far, sitting in first place with the gold medal, it's Locks with Richard Kone. He's never going to be...
Do I get a medal for having the third place? Do I get a point? Do we do a point system? So,
I'll work on it, maybe. I think it could be fun. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And sorry, do you want to round us off there, Locks?
I was just going to say, I think Michael deserves a medal for the most ambitious £20 million striker.
That's minus points.
Participation medal. Cheers.
Minus points.
Yeah, I think Michael's done well. To be fair, he's picked the most ambitious on one of his picks, and the other one, I think he just picked the worst player as well in Dane Scarlet.
You could say the least ambitious. I think it's fair, and that's fair. That's everything's in balance. And on that bombshell, we'll leave it to it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow for Fox's Den.
Peace.
Bye bye.